Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now a while ago I did a video on Hadrian's Wall, but not a lot of people realise that the Romans did actually get further north than this. So join me today as we take a look at the Antonine Wall. The Antonine Wall marks the furthest north that the Roman frontier got in Britain, slicing through the narrowest part of Scotland between the Firth of Clyde and the Firth of Forth. But why did the Romans build a wall here when Hadrian's Wall was doing such a good job further south? Well, when Antoninus Pius became emperor in 138 AD, he faced a bit of a conundrum: how to leave a worthy legacy. The empire was quite stable at the time, so he didn't want to start any massive wars. So extending the frontier north of Hadrian's Wall offered a tidy solution. He could claim a victory of territories in Caledonia. Building the wall was also a diplomatic statement, asserting dominance on the northern tribes of Britain, and also showcasing Roman power to the Senate back home in Rome. The campaign into Caledonia was led by the governor of Britannia, Lollius Urbicus, and in 142 AD construction began on the Antonine Wall. Unlike the stone-built Hadrian's Wall, the Antonine Wall was made of turf on a stone base. It ran 39 miles from east to west, and it's supposed to have been 10 feet high and 16 feet wide. It had a ditch on its northern side, and it may potentially have had a wooden palisade on the top. The wall, of course, wasn't just a wall, but a whole frontier system, with roads like the Military Way, and also constructions of forts and watchtowers and other barriers built to assert dominance and control movement. The wall was built by members of the legions based in Britain at the time: the 6th Legion Victrix, 20th Legion Valeria Victrix, and the 2nd Legion Augusta. Now their work is beautifully immortalised in the distance slabs, beautifully carved stones that indicate which parts of the wall each legion built. Now, although it seems it wasn't part of the original plan, the Antonine Wall ended up with 17 known forts, spaced some 2 miles apart. They would have been manned by auxiliary troops, and between them there would have been smaller fortlets and watchtowers. But these weren't just defensive structures, these were also hubs of Roman administration in what the Romans would have considered a wild and foreign land. Interestingly, Roman soldiers often patrolled north of the wall, engaging in skirmishes, diplomacy, and even outright bribery. The Romans were very pragmatic, offering gifts, trade deals and payments in order to ensure the loyalty of Caledonian chiefs. All along the wall, particularly at Rough Castle, archaeologists have found lilia, ancient Roman booby traps. These were small holes dug into the earth that would have been filled with sharpened stakes and then covered with vegetation to conceal them. Then any would-be attackers would injure or kill themselves on them, showing how the wall was ready for any real violence. Heading further south for a moment, let's take a look at Hadrian's Wall. Now, during this time, Hadrian's Wall seems to have become a bit of a logistical nightmare. Troops and supplies still needed to make their way north to south and vice versa, and Hadrian's Wall was acting as a barrier to that. So along parts of Hadrian's Wall that at the time were still turf, huge cuttings were made into it to make movement between the two frontiers easier. However, despite all this work, the wall was abandoned by around 160 AD. Only some 20 years after construction had begun, and the troops made their way back to Hadrian's Wall. But why? Well, there could be a number of reasons. Firstly, the high cost of maintaining a garrison that far north. Secondly, the difficulty of unconquered Caledonian tribes. And also, and probably most importantly, the death of Antoninus Pius in 161 AD, meaning that interest in having the border that far north will have faded. The Antonine Wall may well have been reoccupied later, but never permanently, and really it became a symbol of Roman overreach and ultimately retreat. Interestingly, by the 8th century, Bede the Bard was making similar mistakes about the Antonine Wall as he had with Hadrian's Wall, giving credit for the wall's construction to local Britons rather than to the Romans, perhaps not realising that the Antonine Wall marked the furthest northern boundary of the Roman Empire. The Antonine Wall is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and if you find yourself in Scotland, please make sure you go and check out some parts of the wall, its forts, and some of its distant slabs that you can find in Glasgow or Edinburgh. They are a perfect example of the Romans and their overreach into Scotland, and although the wall isn't as impressive as Hadrian's Wall, it's nonetheless very, very interesting. But thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, it helps immensely, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now.